Hello, everybody. I just wanted to share what I was watching today. Oh, is that Betty over there? Yeah, that's Betty. Anyway, yeah, somebody mentioned put some tape over your video cam there on your computer, and that was good advice. But yeah, you got to listen to this guy.
There's been a lot of people saying they don't trust anything he says, and that it just sounds too convenient and so on. I get that.
He's talking about Simon
Let me
Parks.
bring in some other names. Robert David Steele often will interview a fictional named person called Juan O Savin. You may have seen videos of him. And Juan O Savin has been consistently saying that he doesn't think Trump will necessarily be president on January 20th, but that Trump will be president on April 1st. And I've always found that to be odd, but suddenly there's something about that that makes sense that I'm going to share with you here shortly. Now, in addition to these people, there's also another man named Scott Kesterson, known as Bards FM. And I've interviewed Scott Kesterson. And by the way, I reached out to Robert David Steele to invite him to an interview. But I've interviewed Kesterson, and Kesterson was formerly an embedded journalist in the Middle East theater of war. And Kesterson is an extraordinary person. I strongly encourage you to listen to his podcast. Again, it's Bards FM, Bards. I think you can find
it gets better. I must have started it too soon.
And Scott Kesterson offered in a podcast yesterday an interpretation of FEMA that enabled, it set off a light bulb in my head and enabled me to put pieces together from many data points. I have to thank Scott Kesterson for bringing this up. So what I'm going to share with you here is not solely what he was saying, but he sparked it. So I want to give him a hat tip and give him credit for sparking this scenario that I'm about to lay out for you here. And I will cite things that have been said by Robert David Steele and others. Finally, let me name Lynn Wood and General Flynn, because what all of these people have in common, all the names I've just given you, in addition to probably some others that I've failed to mention, all of these people believe that Trump is going to be president for a second term. And it's not just that they believe it in a casual way, they believe it sincerely. They believe it very strongly with evidence. And
he's
also
so surprised.
To special information that you and I don't have access to. In fact, I was listening to Dr. Pachenik on the show with Alex Jones yesterday. And Alex was very, very polite with Dr. Pachenik, but Pachenik was being very impolite to Alex. And Pachenik said to Alex, I'm sorry, you haven't been given this information. You're not in the loop on this. And he was talking to Alex in a way I've never heard anybody talk to him. Pachenik was saying, listen up. Maybe you need to take some of your own nutritional supplements so that you can, I think he implied, so you can think more clearly about this or something. It was almost quite insulting, but Alex handled it like a pro, and Alex was like, well, you tell me, how does this work? You're talking about Trump's going to be president, but lay it out. I actually think Alex did a really great job of handling that interview. He did way better than I could have done. I might have just started arguing or something, but Alex did a great job. But Pachenik ended up making a bet with Alex, by the way, a bet where...
Can you believe this?
If Trump isn't president on January 22nd, in other words, if Biden wins, that Pachenik will be banned forever from the InfoWars show. But if Trump is president on January 21st, Alex will hire Pachenik at $200,000 a year to have his own show on InfoWars. So that is a standing bet now between Alex Jones and Steve Pachenik.
I love it.
Bet. But Lynn Wood and General Flynn and Steve Pachenik and others, such as the Juan O Savin character and so on, all of these people believe strongly that Trump is going to be president. And the question is how? How is Trump going to be president? Lay it out. What's the mechanism? So Dr. Pachenik began to explain that today. And he said, well, Biden's going to be arrested. And Alex was like, arrested by who? And Pachenik said, the military. The military is going to arrest Biden. The military is going to arrest Pelosi and arrest Mitt Romney, he said. He actually mentioned Romney and some other names. And he said, because we are in an active military coup. And I had to hear that a couple of times before it finally kicked in. Whoa, we're in an active military coup?
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out.
Makes sense.
It turns out the United States of America is not under civilian authority right now because of the declared states of national emergency and a transition of power to none other than FEMA. And FEMA is currently run by an individual who is a former United States Marine.
Here's where the parts start fitting together.
This is going to get interesting. And the name of this man is Pete Gaynor. Pete Gaynor. Gaynor.
Pete Gaynor, look him up.
At the head of FEMA on January 14, 2020. He was put in place essentially by Trump, but then confirmed by the Senate. Now, if you go to the profile page on FEMA about Pete Gaynor, here's what it says. Prior to his experience as an emergency manager, Gaynor served 26 years as an enlisted Marine and infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps. During his tenure in the Marines, he was assigned as the executive officer responsible for the security of Presidential Retreat, Camp David.
Giving you some eye candy.
Head of plans, policy, and operations at the headquarters Marine Corps during the September 11, 2001 attacks. Deployed in support of Iraqi freedom and the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, where he coordinated combat operations in the Al-Anbar province of Iraq for multinational and Marine forces. Okay, you got all that? And then since then, he's worked in government, Maryland, and other places handling all these disasters. So he's the guy in charge of FEMA. And what Scott Kesterson mentioned in his excellent analysis is that FEMA, the primary role of FEMA in big emergencies is actually continuity of government operations, COG. FEMA is empowered to step in and run a country when it has collapsed, when there is no civilian authority that is functioning. For example, no functioning judicial system.
Interesting.
Like we have right now, no functioning judicial system. FEMA can actually set up its own courts. FEMA can set up its own executive officers, its own departments, its own enforcement, even its own prisons. And what's fascinating about this is that FEMA has been, of course, vilified and warned about by patriots for many, many years, because under Bush and Obama, patriots were concerned about FEMA camps being death camps, and there is very credible information that FEMA camps were being set up to be death camps under Democrats.
Yikes.
It all depends on who's running the things, you see. But under Pete Gaynor, FEMA is a continuity of government operation that has just been activated by Trump in an executive order that we covered, I think, 2 days ago. FEMA has been activated, especially on the East Coast. Pete Gaynor is a combat veteran, an expert in infantry combat. Remember, 1st Marine Expeditionary Forces. He coordinated combat operations in the Al-Anbar province for multinational and Marine forces. So he's used to working with Washington, D.C. is going to be under the control of not Trump, but under the control of a contingency government with military authority. In other words, a combination between the United States military and FEMA. And this is what Steve Pichinik had said. And you had to listen closely to catch this on InfoWars yesterday. Dr. Pichinik said, we are in an active military coup. But it's a coup to restore the republic. It's a coup against the illegal civilian false authority. In other words, the fake Biden-Harris administration.
Ta-da!
The fake election that was conducted under a declared national emergency. In other words, the election, being that it was illegal, is null and void. In fact, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in their letter that was put out, I think 2 days ago now, what did they say in that letter? They said that they are there there to follow all legal orders and to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So to actually quote from that letter, it says, the U.S. military will obey lawful orders from civilian leadership, and we support and defend the Constitution. It says that any act to disrupt the Constitution process is not only against our traditions, values, and oath, it is against the law.
They're sending all those Dems into a big old
was
trap,
disruption
and they
of the
deserve it.
constitutional process, because the rigged election took place in swing states like Pennsylvania that violated the Constitution and used their executive branches, governors and state Supreme Courts, well, I guess a combination of executive and judicial, in order to alter the timeline of the election and extend it out for weeks instead of having it end on November 3rd. That was unconstitutional. So when the Joint Chiefs of Staff are saying in the letter that we are going to support and defend the Constitution, and that any act to disrupt the constitutional process is against the law, what they're saying is that they are going to uphold the rule of law. And even though they say that President-elect Biden will be inaugurated, what I'm learning from these other individuals is that Biden would then be declared an illegitimate, fake, illegal president and removed from power.
Got it?
And that FEMA would step in for the continuity of government operations, and that the military would then be in temporary authority to go out and arrest all of the traitors who have been working against the Constitution and against this country for, well, frankly, for many decades. And when that letter talks about how it's wrong that, the Capitol building, there's been insurrection in the Capitol building. Well, yeah, there's been insurrection in the Capitol building for decades from the lawmakers. They've been violating the Constitution. They are the insurrectionists. And it is their attempted coup that is going to be stopped by a military coup, according to Dr. Pachenik.
I love it. Okay. So that guy lays it out. So we're gonna have a look at, first we're gonna look at, it would make sense with what Juan is saying, because what he wasn't saying was the part this guy adds, which is the military coup part. Okay, and that the military's all been lined up under Trump, and they're not for the Biden administration, because the Biden administration is a false one. And that's pretty much what we all know, right? We know that. So it makes sense. And Juan just left that part out because, we don't need to tell the bad guys exactly what we know, right? So, and maybe what they don't know. So I feel like this guy might have a really good point. So I'm going to look at what Juan said. It would also make sense to what Juan O Savin said about 30 or 45 days of chaos and difficulty. I mean, if a military goes in and does a coup, there's going to be some wrestling, right? And if everybody starts getting rounded up, that's going to be like crazy, right? So that just makes sense. I don't think it'll be as crazy as everybody thinks it might be, but it has a potential to be it's pretty dramatic. Oh, we got the death card in the middle there. So this is what Juan O Savin said, okay? 10 and... So he's coming from a good place because he's coming the Empress. And he left some things out. So we've got that 8 of Swords. So he's not saying everything, right? Because that 8 of Swords leaves some things out. He's left some things out. We've got the 10. I think he wants people to realize it'll look bad, but underneath they got it, right? So the death card, they're bringing the death of and the taking down of the deep state. Okay, we'll just call it the deep state. And the dark, with the C word and the I word, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so we've got this 10. So they're bringing the end. So a 10 is an ending the facade, right? So he was saying they're going to end the facade. And this could even be imprisoning and or capturing, okay, to bring this end. So he was giving good information, but he was leaving out a part of it. He was preparing people so they wouldn't freak out. Because he left out some of those crucial things, people are going to freak out. People are freaking out. Yeah, he left out a big part of it, but that's because it'll be safer if it's not out there so blatantly. It was his wisdom that he left it out, but it did cause a lot of stress. Wow, okay, so let's look at this guy, the way he lays it out, the guy we were just listening to, which is Situation Update, Brighton.com. Now go back to the beginning and stop your screen if you want, you know, like the title of it here. All right, you can find it that way. HRR, whatever that is. Okay, somebody sent it to me, that link. So I'm not exactly sure where the link is put up. But stop your screen and have a look, you'll get it. Okay, so now we're looking at what that guy says, what we just listened to together. Isn't the lighting pretty here? I was showing you some eye candy there. Yeah, this living room is really sweet in, you know, different lights. It's just beautiful. Wow, okay, that guy's really pulling it together. He got a lot of it here. That is definitely one of the ways. So they have a whole bunch of things in play. I don't think what Juan said is exactly how it's going to go, and I don't think what that guy said. I think there's a combination, and those are some of the ways they could go. And yeah, it feels like it'll go better, even better than what this guy laid out. So that must mean it's way better than what Juan was saying. And remember what I said in the car ride. I think Juan put that out there just to throw off the bad guys. Honestly, I do. Yeah, their true plan, they have a third plan that's maybe somewhere in the middle of these two that's completely different. Yeah, so we're not supposed to know, but this one is very, very close. Very close. A few details off, but it's definitely got the right idea here. This is a military card, and they are officially going to be handed over the reins, it looks like. Wow, wow, wow. I think there's one more play that they're going to do, I feel like there's one more thing they're going to do the day before that could stop this from going down this way and right things the day before. But that play, we may or may not see. It depends on how it works. They got another play. I feel like they're going to bring an option to the bad guys and let them kind of surrender. So I guess they're going to see, maybe in private, see if Biden concedes to Trump with everything Trump will have on him. And if failing that, we won't even hear about that unless it's a yes from Biden. And failing that, I think this, what this guy laid out here, what we've been listening to together, I think that's what's really close to what's going down. And it will cause a lot of chaos, and it does make sense that it'll change everything. Oh, Betty wants out. Let's go for a little walk. Oh, somebody fixed the shoes up really nice. Hey, Betty. There you go, girl. There's the tree. We'll end on a little tree gazing, sky gazing.